Aaliyah Clark was a girl who never asked for attention. Quiet, smart, and observant, she glided through the halls of St. Mary's Middle School unnoticed by most of her peers. It wasn't that she wanted to be invisible, but the feeling of being different seemed to follow her like a shadow. At 13, Aaliyah had already learned that being a black girl in a predominantly white school came with challenges. She had been taught at home to be proud of her heritage, to wear her natural curls like a crown, and to embrace her darker skin with confidence. But middle school was a battlefield, and no amount of preparation could truly protect her from the unspoken, and sometimes spoken, cruelties of her classmates. Little did they know, Aaliyah was harboring a secret so powerful that when revealed, it would turn the entire school on its head. It started small, as these things often do. A few sneers in the hallways, snide remarks whispered just loud enough for Aaliyah to hear. The kind of casual cruelty that kids think doesn't matter, but cuts deep. It was Lily Anderson, who led the charge. Blonde, popular, and known for her sharp tongue, Lily's words could leave invisible scars. At first, Aaliyah tried to ignore it. After all, her father always told her to choose her battles wisely. "Keep your head up, baby girl," he would say. "Not every fight deserves your energy." She clung to his advice as she brushed past the insults, pretending not to hear the giggles that followed her down the hallway. But Lily wasn't one to be ignored. One day, it escalated. Aaliyah was sitting in math class when she felt a cold splash of water hit the back of her head. She froze, her fingers tightening around her pencil as she heard Lily's mocking voice from behind her. "Oops, my bad," Lily snickered, her voice dripping with insincerity. The classroom erupted in laughter. Aaliyah's curls, which her mother had spent time carefully styling that morning, now dripped with water. She could feel the weight of the stares, the pity from some, and the glee from others. Her cheeks burned with shame, but still, she didn't say anything. She kept her eyes on the board, pretending like nothing had happened. But inside, something was shifting. Something was breaking. The cafeteria was always the worst. It was a stage where the invisible lines of popularity, power, and race were drawn. Aaliyah usually sat alone, not because she didn't have friends, but because even her closest friend, Maya, sometimes found it easier to blend into the background than sit with her in the spotlight of Lily's ridicule. On this particular day, Aaliyah had just sat down with her lunch when she noticed Lily and her crew approaching. Her stomach tightened. They rarely bothered her in the cafeteria. Too public, too many witnesses. But something was different today. "Hey, Aaliyah," Lily called out, her voice carrying across the room. "Mind if we sit?" Aaliyah didn't answer. She knew better than to engage, but before she could react, Lily's group had already surrounded her table. Lily leaned in close, her voice low but venomous. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Always acting like you're better than everyone else." Aaliyah blinked. "I've never—" But before she could finish her sentence, Lily reached out and slapped the sandwich from Aaliyah's hand, sending it flying to the floor. The cafeteria went silent. Lily stood up straight, her eyes cold. "You don't belong here," she sneered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're nothing." The words hit Aaliyah like a punch to the gut. For a moment, she just sat there, staring at her food scattered across the floor. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps as she felt every eye in the room on her, waiting. Something inside her snapped. Aaliyah stood slowly, her knees shaking, but her mind clearer than it had been in weeks. She looked around the cafeteria, at all the faces staring back at her, waiting for her to break down, to run away in tears. But she didn't. Instead, she looked Lily straight in the eye. "You think you can say whatever you want, because no one will stand up to you," Aaliyah said, her voice trembling with emotion. "But I'm done being silent." Lily blinked, momentarily caught off guard. "What are you talking about?" Aaliyah's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You don't know anything about me. You don't know who I am or what I'm capable of." There was a ripple of murmurs through the cafeteria. A few students leaned in closer, intrigued. Lily crossed her arms, her smirk returning. "Oh, really? And what makes you so special?" Aaliyah took a deep breath. She had never wanted to play this card. She didn't want to be the girl who got special treatment because of who her father was. But this had gone too far. "My father," Aaliyah said, her voice growing stronger, is, Malcolm Clark. The name hung in the air, heavy with weight. Several students gasped. Even Lily's smirk faltered for a moment. Malcolm Clark, the civil rights lawyer who had been on the news just a few weeks ago for winning a landmark case against a major corporation for racial discrimination. He was a man known for standing up against injustice, for fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves. Aaliyah looked around the room, her heart racing. Yeah, that's right. The same Malcolm Clark who's coming here tomorrow to give a speech about bullying and equality. The same man who's been working with the school for weeks to investigate the bullying that's been happening here. She took a step toward Lily, her voice unwavering. And guess what? He's coming here. Because of me. Because I told him what's been happening. Because I've been dealing with people like you. Lily's face turned pale. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I didn't say anything for so long because I didn't want to cause trouble, Aaliyah continued. But now, I'm done staying quiet. You're not going to push me around anymore. The cafeteria was dead silent. No one moved. No one spoke. They just stared at Aaliyah, wide-eyed and shocked. Lily stumbled back, her confidence shattered. Her group, once so eager to follow her lead, now seemed to shrink away, avoiding her gaze. You think this changes anything? Lily stammered, but her voice lacked the venom it once held. So, what if your dad's some big-shot lawyer? I'm still what? Aaliyah interrupted, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. Still black? Still different? You're right. I am, and I'm proud of it. Lily's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Aaliyah didn't wait for her to respond. She turned and walked away, her head held high, leaving Lily and the stunned crowd in her wake. She could feel the eyes on her, but this time, it didn't bother her. This time, she felt powerful. As Aaliyah left the cafeteria, Maya rushed up to her, her face a mixture of shock and awe. Aaliyah, I can't believe you just did that. Aaliyah smiled, though her heart was still racing. I can't believe it either, she admitted, but I'm done letting people like her push me around. Maya grinned. I'm so proud of you. The next day, the entire school gathered in the auditorium for the long-awaited assembly. There was a buzz of anticipation in the air. Everyone had heard about what happened in the cafeteria. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. When Aaliyah walked in, the whispers started. People pointed, stared, but this time it wasn't out of ridicule. This time, it was out of respect. She found a seat near the front, her heart pounding in her chest as the lights dimmed and her father took the stage. Malcolm Clark was a commanding presence, tall and confident, with a voice that could fill any room. He began his speech, talking about the importance of standing up against bullying, about the power of speaking out against injustice. But then, he paused. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on Aaliyah. There's someone here today, he said, who has shown incredible strength and courage, someone who decided that enough was enough. Aaliyah's heart skipped a beat. My daughter, Aaliyah, stood up when it would have been easier to stay silent. She faced something that no one should have to face, and she didn't back down. She spoke up, not just for herself, but for others. The room was completely silent. Aaliyah could feel every eye on her, but for the first time, she didn't feel small. She felt proud. I'm proud of her, her father continued, his voice filled with emotion. And I want all of you to remember something very important. You don't need to wait for someone to come and save you. You have the power within yourselves to stand up for what's right. You can speak out against bullying, against racism, against cruelty, and make a real difference. The audience sat in rapt silence, absorbing every word. Aaliyah's eyes misted, but she blinked back the tears. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, but this moment was different. She wasn't being stared at because of her skin, her clothes, or because of what Lily and the other bullies had done to her. She was being seen for her strength, her bravery, and the change she had sparked. Her father finished his speech with a powerful statement. When you see injustice, do not turn away. When you witness cruelty, speak out. Because the world doesn't change when people stay silent. It changes when ordinary people decide to be extraordinary. The room erupted into applause, echoing through the auditorium like thunder. Aaliyah could feel the vibrations in her chest, but it wasn't the applause that filled her with pride. It was the knowledge that she had stood up, not just for herself, but for every kid who had ever been bullied, for every child who had ever felt like they didn't belong. As the students filed out of the auditorium, several stopped to congratulate Aaliyah. Some simply nodded in respect, while others came up to her, offering words of apology and admiration. Maya rushed to her side, beaming with pride. "Aaliyah, that was amazing. You were incredible." Aaliyah smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. "Thanks, Maya. I couldn't have done it without you." As they made their way toward the exit, Aaliyah noticed Lily lingering by the door. Her usual smug expression was gone, replaced with something that looked like uncertainty, or maybe even regret. For a moment, their eyes met, and Lily hesitated. Lily began, her voice small and hesitant, a far cry from the girl who had humiliated Aaliyah in front of the whole school. "I'm sorry. I didn't realize." Aaliyah held up her hand. "You didn't realize what? That I was human? That your words hurt?" Lily's face turned red. She looked down at the floor. "I didn't think. I was just—" She faltered, searching for an excuse, but there was none. Aaliyah took a deep breath. For a moment, she considered walking away, leaving Lily to stew in her guilt. But then she remembered her father's words about standing up for more than just yourself. "I forgive you," Aaliyah said finally. Lily's head snapped up in surprise. "But forgiveness doesn't mean there aren't consequences. You need to understand that what you did was wrong, and it hurt people. If you really mean what you say, then you need to make it right." Lily nodded slowly, looking humbled. "I will," she whispered. Aaliyah didn't wait for more. She simply turned and walked away, Maya by her side. It wasn't about gaining power over Lily or anyone else. It was about reclaiming her own sense of worth, of knowing that she had done the right thing, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been mistreated. The days following the assembly were different. Aaliyah noticed that people treated her with a newfound respect. The students who once ignored her now smiled and greeted her in the hallways. The whispers that used to follow her were replaced with nods of recognition. But what mattered most was the change in herself. Aaliyah felt lighter, as if the weight of years of silent suffering had been lifted. She was no longer the quiet girl who let the world pass her by. She had a voice, and she wasn't afraid to use it. As Aaliyah and Maya walked through the school courtyard after class, Maya turned to her with a grin. "So, what's next for you, Ms. Civil Rights?" Aaliyah laughed, a real, genuine laugh. "I don't know, but whatever it is, I won't be afraid to speak up." As they headed toward the school gates, Aaliyah looked back one last time. The place that had once felt like a battlefield now felt like a space she had conquered. It wasn't that the bullies had disappeared or that injustice would magically go away, but Aaliyah had learned something more powerful than all of that. She had control over her own story, and that was a lesson she would carry with her for the rest of her life. A few months later, the school held another assembly. This time, it wasn't just about bullying. It was about inclusion, empathy, and the strength to stand up for one another. The administration had taken Aaliyah's story to heart, and with her father's help, they created a program that encouraged students to speak out against injustice in all its forms. Lily, who had once been the school's biggest bully, was now one of the program's most active participants. She spent her time helping other students understand the importance of kindness and empathy. Though she had a long way to go in earning back everyone's trust, she was trying. And Aaliyah? She became the face of that change, not because she wanted the spotlight, but because she knew that her story had the power to inspire others. She had learned that sometimes standing up for yourself wasn't just about you. It was about creating a ripple effect that could change the lives of others. And that, in the end, was what truly blew everyone away.